Folks, this is very obviously not a free lunch. This is very clear. The end of the article gives it away. Folks, the donuts are being dangled in front of you. In our analogy with the donuts and the 12-foot long pole, let's use that analogy. The donuts in this case is health. You're going to improve the next generation's health, the first smoke-free generation. The NHS is going to have less pressure on it, which is going to benefit you. Those are the donuts, folks, that are being dangled in front of you. In this case, the donuts are health. That's why I said at the very beginning of the show, when I made reference to me getting vitamin D this morning, is this a health story, folks? Is it? Is it really a health story? Well, you know what? You are trying to be given the illusion that this is one big health story. It's all about the children, it's all about the teenagers, it's all about creating a smoke-free generation, it's all about health. It's about making you, Wes Streeting is very concerned about your health. And you know, old Andy there from Verify My, he's really interested in your health too. Are they really interested in your health? You know, that's the illusion that you're being given. You're being sold the notion that this is a story about health. Folks, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Yes, will this legislation introduce a channel factor? Yes, it will. Will it make it more awkward for people to purchase cigarettes after they are born? Or when they are born after January the 1st, 2009? Yes. Does it ban you from engaging in the act of smoking? Absolutely not. This is completely different to you going out with your bag of cocaine on the street and snorting cocaine. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to engage in the public act of snorting and carrying a whole bunch of cocaine around with you, but for cigarettes, you will still be allowed to do that. You're just not allowed to legally purchase cigarettes. Okay, so if you think that this is just, you know, it's for the health, it's for the health of the young people, smoke-free generation, less pressure on the NHS, health, health, health. Folks, look at what the end of the article says. In order for this legislation, folks, to work, what has to happen? In order to be able to actually pull this off, how is it that you're going to pull this off? How are you going to be able to ensure that someone who is born after January the 1st, 2009, isn't actually, how are you going to verify that it's them? You heard what Andy said. Are we going to force people to carry, you know, their birth certificate around with them? Nah, you're not going to have to do that. No. What's going to happen is they are going to bring in facial recognition technologies and digital ID. Can you not see that, folks? That's what this is. This is a way to get the foot in the door. The donuts that are being dangled are the health donuts, we're going to call them. You are being given the illusion that this is a story about health, but it's really to get you on board with the idea that facial recognition cameras can be put all over your town, all over your city. Your face can be recorded legally. And it opens the door to digital ID, because how the fuck do you prove who you are? You're going to have a digital ID. Folks, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And I'm not saying that one is good and one is bad. What I'm getting at is that there's no such thing as a free lunch. This is not exclusively a health story. Health is being used to get you on board with facial recognition cameras being put up all over your town and city. It's getting you on board with the idea that you're going to need a digital ID to verify who you are and when you were born. Because folks, it's like Andy said in the article. You know, the chief officer of Verify My. You know old Andy there? He said that for this legislation to work, it's going to need to be robustly enforced. And how's it going to be enforced, folks? Well, your face, your being is going to be analysed by facial recognition technology. See, when you go into the shop, do you think that these facial recognition technologies and digital IDs are only going to be used on the smokers who are looking to purchase cigarettes? Is that what you think? Do you not think that these facial recognition technologies and the digital ID might then spread broadly to the population? Folks, all you need to do is get the foot in the door. This is exactly like the story we covered here on the show with Meta and YouTube losing in court and online censorship being brought in for minors. Foot in the door. YouTube and Meta's defeat in court was a way to get parents on board with the idea that we are protecting the children. We're protecting the children. And when we protect the children, that means it's okay to censor the children. But that's getting the foot in the door. It's exactly the same thing here. Who is being used as the way to convince you that this legislation is good? The children. The children, the young generation, smoke-free young generation. So because we're looking to protect the children's health, you need to get on board with the idea that there's going to be a fucking surveillance state watching your every move. Because that's what's going to have to happen, folks. To enforce this, you're going to need facial recognition technologies in shops. You're going to need a way to verify what age you are. That's called a digital ID, dipshit campaigner and dipshit idiot who thinks that this is a good thing, who thinks they've been given a free lunch. Now again, I'm not saying that a surveillance state is good or bad. I'm not here to comment on that. But what I am here to highlight to you is that free lunches never happen. You never get a free lunch. This smoking ban in the UK, whereby you're not legally allowed to purchase cigarettes, red flag, because if they were really serious about health, they would just ban the act of smoking, which they have not done. This isn't a free lunch. This is a way to use health and children's health and teenagers' health and the young generation's health. This is being used. The health angle and the young people's health specifically is being used to get you on board with the idea that facial recognition technologies, in other words, cameras all over your town and city, is a good thing. It's getting you on board with the idea that digital ID is a good thing, because we don't want young people getting their hands on cigarettes. We wouldn't want people's health to get damaged. So, you know, it's good. Yeah, absolutely. Bring in the cameras, bring in the surveillance, bring in the facial recognition technologies, bring in the digital ID. That's all good. You've got the thumbs up from me because it's all about the children's health. We wouldn't want children getting access to cigarettes now, would we? That would damage their health. And, you know, not only would it damage their health, but you see, it would also, you know, put more stress and strain on the NHS. What a tragedy that would be. Folks, I don't care whether you think the legislation is good or bad. I don't care if you think facial recognition technologies, surveillance cameras all over the place, and digital IDs are good or bad. I'm not here to comment on either of those two things. what I'm here to comment on is it's very clear to me that this story, this whole smoking ban, it's very clear that health is being used to get you on board with the idea that there will be surveillance cameras all over the place, in your shops and elsewhere, that there will be facial recognition technology. In other words, your face, you are going to be videoed without your permission. So when you're walking around town and you're walking into shops, your face and your body and your image and body is going to be taken without your permission. Video of you will be taken without your permission, and then finally digital ID, because of course you need to verify who you are. And this smoking ban is being used to get the foot in the door. It only starts with smoking, folks. It starts with smoking. And then you see, once the little surveillance cameras are in place, you see once the little facial recognition cameras are in place, and then see once the digital IDs are in place, well then, those things could be repurposed for other uses, couldn't they, folks? Because once the infrastructure is in place, it can be used for other things. Potentially. Now let me draw something else to your attention. Not only is this smoking ban, which, again, I'm a firm man, folks. Will the smoking ban cause some people to reduce the amount of cigarettes that they're consuming and perhaps even quit smoking? Yes, because it introduces a channel factor. This legislation will create an obstacle, or as we call it, a channel factor, which will cause people to have to invest more energy in order to purchase cigarettes. It makes it more difficult to just go into the shop and buy cigarettes, and that obstacle, that extra energy that people have to invest, will deter some people from smoking as many cigarettes as they've been smoking, and perhaps it may just cause them to fucking quit the stuff altogether. That is true. But folks, it's not all about health. This is not all about health. There's clearly another angle here. So not only do we have this idea that health, and in particular young people and children's health, is being used to get you on board with this legislation, because you're then going to say, well, this legislation's great because it's going to protect the health of my little Johnny. Little Johnny won't be able to just walk into the supermarket when he's an adult and buy cigarettes. This is great. My family's going to be healthier, less pressure on the NHS, blah-de fucking blah. Okay, that's what this angle is. That's what you're trying to be sold on. But very clearly we can see when we read the article, folks, this is a foot in the door for digital ID, for facial recognition technologies, and for surveillance cameras to be put all over the place, and for your body and face to be taken without your permission and perhaps potentially be used. Your data, in this case, your actual body, videos of you will be allowed to be taken without your permission, in the interest of, making sure that you're the right age so that you can't purchase cigarettes illegally. That's how it starts, folks. And then let's say that infrastructure gets put into place. The surveillance cameras are all now stationed across towns and cities. The facial recognition technology is across towns and cities. The digital ID has now got the foot in the door through this health legislation with regards to smoking. Once it's all got its foot in the door, then of course it can be repurposed for some other use beyond cigarettes and policing if people are the right age to be purchasing cigarettes or not. So not only is there that angle, folks, but there's something else here. There's another reason why this isn't a free lunch. Folks, you do realise that the government taxes tobacco. So you do realise that the government makes money from tobacco. Let me just give you a rough figure for how much money the government makes, the UK government will make each year on tobacco, or even any government in general. Let me just give you ballpark figures here. Governments can make, through taxation on tobacco, 10 to 12 billion. Let me repeat that. Government makes through taxation, and when we add VAT on, government can make anywhere in the range of 10 to 12 billion pounds, dollars, whatever the fuck you want to use, on tobacco through tax. Now, folks, this legislation is basically saying, it's giving you the illusion that the government wants people to be healthier. In other words, it's giving you the illusion that we want to stop cigarettes being sold. So let's use our logic here, folks. If the government makes 10 to 12 billion through taxing tobacco, do you think the government is just going to say, oh, well, you know, we used to make 10 to 12 billion, but you know, that's the price we're going to have to pay for making our population healthier? Do you think the government is going to allow 10 to 12 billion pounds that it would otherwise make through the taxation of tobacco? Do you think the government is going to allow 10 to 12 billion to be just pissed in the wind and flushed down the toilet? Does that logically make sense, folks? Fuck me. Folks, we need to use our brains here. We need to use our logic. Of course, the government is not going to allow 10 to 12 billion pounds to be pissed in the wind. The government benefits financially through the taxation of tobacco. So the government has an interest in more tobacco being sold because it makes more money. So then you sort of have this, thing to analyze here whereby, hold on, so you're telling me the government is passing legislation to basically ban the selling of cigarettes and tobacco. But would that not damage the government's bottom line? The government's just going to lose 10 to 12 billion in a few decades without the taxation coming from cigarettes. Folks, do you think the government is just going to take that hit like an honourable gentleman? Oh well, I was making 10 to 12 billion on taxing cigarettes and tobacco, but you know, no, the health of the citizens are more important, so I'm just going to, you know, give up my 10 to 12 billion. Does that sound like that's realistically going to happen? You know that 12-foot long pole, folks, that I talked about at the start of the show, that's coming for your arse while you're eating the donuts because you think the donuts have been given to you as a free lunch? Folks, if the government is going to now damage the sales, basically damage the tobacco industry by not allowing the tobacco industry to legally sell its tobacco to people who are born after January the 1st, 2009. That means, at face value, that means the government's going to lose money. It currently makes 10 to 12 billion a year through taxation on tobacco. So if this legislation truly goes through and it's robustly enforced, that means the government is going to lose money through tobacco. And do you think the government's just going to say, oh well, there goes that money? Or do you think the government is going to look for another way to acquire that money that it's now going to lose? Might the government raise taxes elsewhere? And who do you think might be on the receiving end of such tax rises in the future to make up for the lack of money that would otherwise have came through taxation on tobacco? Who do you think is going to be left holding the bag of shite? Who do you think is going to have the 12-foot long pole up their hole? Who do you think the government is most likely to turn to and to increase their taxes upon? Who is most likely to face the brunt of increasing taxes from the government now that they're losing money through this legislation with regards to big tobacco. Folks, is it a leap to say that the money that the government is going to lose through taxing tobacco is going to be made up by taxing someone else, by raising taxes elsewhere? Who do you think's going to end up with the 12-foot pole up their hole potentially? That's right, you!